Hello, and welcome to the Magic of Calvin and Hobbes, a fan celebration. My name is Ryan, and I am a self-proclaimed Calvin and Hobbes superfan and expert.
And my name is also Ryan, although most people call me Indy.
Welcome back, listeners. In today's episode, we'll be talking about BARRRFF and Calvin getting down with the sickness, which is a surprisingly common theme in Calvin and Hobbes.
I guess we could have used that for this week's theme song instead of the 1812 Overture, but maybe it's better with the classic.
Yeah, we might have to pay the licensing fees or something too, so
that's true. That's another consideration. So, listeners, you can imagine that instead of the 1812 Overture, you heard Down with the Sickness.
Yes, and just a quick disclaimer before our disclaimers, neither of us actually knows anything about that song other than that it says Down with the Sickness, so you'll have to fill in the blanks yourself. But anyway, on to our actual disclaimers. As always, we're not affiliated with Bill Watterson. We aren't affiliated with his syndicate. We don't own the rights to Calvin and Hobbes, so we can't display any of the comics on our YouTube channel or anywhere else. But we can write a blog post that gives you the dates of publication, so you can look them up on gocomics.com if you have a subscription, or in the Complete Calvin and Hobbes if you have that. And we'll also give the page numbers in the collections and treasuries, so you can look it up in those if you have them. So, with that all said, let's talk about Calvin getting sick. And that's surprisingly fitting this episode, because at the time of recording, Indy and I have both been sick, so it's possible you might have heard some croakiness in our voices in some of the previous episodes, and that's why.
Yeah, I have a cough drop in as we speak.
Yeah, so we hopefully we'll get through this episode, but it seems like a good time to talk about being sick, which actually, the fact that Indy and I have been sick is kind of an important point because, even though it's maybe kind of odd to dedicate a whole episode to Calvin being sick, there are actually several stories involving either Calvin or someone in his family being sick. And I think not only is that a big part of just being human or being a living thing, but it's also a really significant part of childhood specifically. I mean, staying home from school is almost a rite of passage. Staying home because you're sick specifically.
That's true. Now, on that note, do you remember Little Peggy Ann McKay?
I think so. Is that a Shel Silverstein poem?
Exactly. Yeah. So this is a poem from Where the Sidewalk Ends. Now, hopefully, our listeners are familiar with that, and I won't do the whole thing, but I'll do kind of the start and the end. So it starts. I cannot go to school today, said Little Peggy Ann McKay. I have the measles and the mumps, a rash and gash and purple bumps. Okay, so that's how it starts. And then the very end, so she goes through all the various symptoms and maladies she has. And the very end, it says, "What? What's that you say? You say today is Saturday? Goodbye, I'm going out to play."
Yep.
Yeah, so that's, again, very relatable. Either really being sick when you're a kid and having to stay home from school, or being quote unquote sick and staying home from school when you're a kid. Yeah, I agree. Rites of passage.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everyone maybe tries faking being sick in some capacity at least once. I only did it one time, and I don't think it worked, but I did try it one time when I didn't want to go to school.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I ever tried to fake being sick, but there may have been times when I kind of thought I didn't feel that well, but maybe my parents thought that maybe I really did, and it was kind of more in my head. I wasn't actually that bad off, so.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's a little bit more what my situation was. Like, I felt, a little tickle in my throat, and I thought maybe I can kind of leverage this to my advantage or something. But
I mean, better safe than sorry, right? I mean,
but I don't want to get anyone else sick. I'm being altruistic here.
exactly. And plus, the smallest cough, it might seem like nothing, or it could be the Black Plague. So,
Right.
really, the only responsible thing to do would be to stay home.
Exactly. So, I mean, my parents making me go to school, they were risking causing a pandemic or something, and we all know what that's like.
Well, that's true. Gosh, I'm getting flashbacks now. I think that is how the COVID pandemic started. It was a parent making their child go to school when the child wanted to stay home.
Yeah, and we've been blaming bats this whole time.
Yeah, or like a lab in another country or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this is a better explanation.
Yeah, I think we ought to submit a paper to Nature or something.
Exactly. But in
Yeah.
any case, back to Calvin.
Yes, so let's get down with the sickness. Wah! Okay, that's enough of that. So, Indy, do you have a guess what the first instance of Calvin being sick is?
Okay, so I originally had one guess, and then I second guessed myself. No pun intended. So here's what I think. So I think this happens pretty early on, maybe even in the first book. And I'm thinking we just see Calvin sick in bed watching TV, and then we see what's happening on the TV, or we hear what's happening on the TV. And I guess I always assumed it was some kind of soap opera or something. And it's like two people are talking about murdering their spouses and running away together.
Don't you wish we were married? Oh, but we are. Or did you mean to each other?
Right. So yeah, very scandalous even before we get to the murdering part. So yeah, and then Calvin says, "I think I learn more when I stay home from school."
Yep.
So yeah, but that's my guess of what I think might have been the first instance of Calvin being sick.
Yep, you got it. That's the one. And you're right, it is in the first book. Actually, within the first few pages, I think. So Calvin and Hobbes started in November of 1985. So almost the end of the year. And I think that strip is still in 1985. So, the first month and a half of the strip's run or something.
All right, so yeah, so very early on then. Okay. Yeah, so all right, yeah, I was pretty sure. I'm like, I know there's a really early episode where this happens, so
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the first one. And I mean, Calvin does seem to legitimately be sick in this one. He's got a thermometer in his mouth, but he's not feeling so awful that he can't sit up and watch TV, watch the soap opera.
You know what? He's right too. I mean, some of that daytime TV, that is scandalous stuff. I mean, don't let your
Yeah.
kids watch that.
Yeah, I always watched The Price is Right when I was sick. I mean, to quote Calvin, I was watching all the wrong channels.
That's true. Yeah, I remember that too. Price is Right as a kid. Like, I used to really like some of those shows. Like, I think my favorite. There was more than one. I really liked the mountain climber one, mainly because I thought it was really funny when the guy fell off at the end.
Okay. I mean, I don't think this is really going to surprise anyone, but I got to go with Plinko.
That was my other one. Like, I don't know why. In one sense, it's kind of silly, but yeah, that was fun to watch.
Yeah, if I had ever been on The Price is Right, that's the game I would have wanted to play. I mean, there is something to be said for just getting cash. Because if you get a car or something, you have to pay taxes on it. So
Oh, that's
if you get cash, at least you have the cash with which to pay the taxes.
that does make it a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I guess so. With that, it sort of depends too, like which game you would want. So there are the strategic considerations, like you're bringing up, and then so you could not just taxes, but like which game you might have the best chance of winning, that sort of thing. But then there's the ones that just seem like the most fun. So that would be the other thing too. So I
Like
agree.
Plinko seems like a lot of fun. You could
Yeah,
drop the
I
thing.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, Plinko seems like a lot of fun. It always seemed like it would be fun to kind of spin the wheel too.
Oh, yeah, you got to spin the wheel. I mean, and everyone who goes up gets to spin the wheel. I had it all planned out, actually. I was going to play Plinko, and I was going to win the $1,000 on the wheel, and then I was going to go to the showcase and win all this stuff. But anyway, I guess that was a little bit of a digression. Back to Calvin and Hobbes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, before we get into specific stories where Calvin gets sick, I want to point something out. We were just talking about faking getting sick, and Calvin surprisingly very rarely fakes being sick to get out of school. I can actually only think of one instance that kind of mirrors that Peggy Ann McKay poem you brought up.
Yeah.
Where he lists all the symptoms, like I've got a fever and a headache and I'm seeing spots and I'm dizzy and I can't remember all of them, but he lists a whole bunch of symptoms and mom says, I'll call the doctor. And Calvin goes, no, actually it's clearing up. I think I can go to school now. It's fine. And he says, it's hard to hit that magic mix of, vaguely ominous but not quite concerning symptoms or something like that.
Yeah, which true, but yeah, and I always loved how sort of matter of fact he was about it. It's like, oh, actually, you know what? Huh, weirdest thing, right? Like, it seems to be clearing up now. That's odd. Oh, I guess I will go to school.
Yeah, so that's the only instance I can think of where Calvin actually fakes being sick, which I find kind of strange for Calvin. But we'll maybe talk about that more in a sec.
Yeah, it is like you said. It's kind of funny when you think about it, given how much he doesn't want to go to school and tries other things to avoid it. This seems like a much simpler plan. So yeah, I think you're right. That's the only time I can think of with that. There also is one time where he attempts to actually get sick to avoid going to school. I think this might be in kind of a throwaway gag at the beginning of another strip, but it's like, yeah, his plan, I think because he forgot his homework or something, is like to stick his head out the window and try to catch a cold. So he does that on one occasion also.
Yeah, and actually that leads me to my point that maybe why Calvin doesn't fake being sick very often. So, I mean, I think the way that his mom handles him being sick is kind of brilliant, actually, because she takes care of him, but it also maybe kind of dissuades him from faking. Because in that same strip that you mentioned, there's the throwaway joke where he says, I'm going to catch a quick cold to avoid my assignment or whatever, sticks his head out the window. But then in the main strip, he's actually coughing, and his mom comes in and says, goodness, you sound terrible. I'm going to go get the cough syrup. And he says, no, I don't need cough syrup. And he hates it. And so then when she comes in, he's like, no, actually, it was Hobbes coughing. Make him take the cough syrup. And she, of course, forces it into his mouth. And then Calvin's like, actually, this cough syrup was pretty good, Hobbes. You should try some. And Hobbes is like, no way.
Yeah, you're not fooling me at all, you faker.
Yeah.
So, if he fakes being sick, he runs the risk of having to take gross medicine. So I think that dissuades him.
That is true.
Also, when he's sick, so there's a time when he actually is sick again, and we'll get to this story a little later. It's part of a story, but Mom gives him a thermometer, and Calvin says, I don't want a thermometer. I hate thermometers. I refuse. And then in the last panel, he's sitting on the couch and thinking, I still don't believe her that these things take 2 hours to register. And she's like, you be nice and quiet and I'll check on you this afternoon. So again, if he fakes being sick, he runs the risk of having to sit on a couch for 2 hours with a thermometer in his mouth. Brilliant play by his mom.
That's true. And then, I mean, I don't know if it's as bad as being stuck in school listening to the teacher, but it's probably pretty bad too, like just having to sit there for 2 hours. So yeah, it's not worth it. On the cough syrup incident where that tastes so gross. So first I will say relatable. I remember growing up, cough syrup almost always just tasted terrible. Like you were lucky if you got some of those even just mildly okay. That being said, the last time I was sick, other than what we just talked about, so last year I got sick and I was prescribed some cough syrup by my doctor. And I'm like, oh no. So, okay, even though, as an adult, ostensibly you're not that, that traumatized by bad tasting food at that point, for lack of a better word. It's like, okay, I don't want to take this. And lo and behold, this cough syrup tasted good.
Wow.
That's what I said. I was like, what? What is, I was expecting to be like, oh, it's so bad, but I have to take it. I was like, this is actually tasty. Like, I like this. So I'm like, wait, no. I shouldn't
I'm gonna
take
have
more.
some more. No, wait.
Yeah, I'm like, no, that would be bad. But I'm like, yeah. So I was floored. So apparently it is possible for cough syrup to taste good.
On that note, when I was a kid, I actually liked liquid amoxicillin.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever had it, but it was actually pretty good. I almost looked forward to taking it when I was a kid. Now, that was the only one. There were lots of others, like, cough syrups that were gross. And when I was 3, I had to take some stuff called Augmentin. And my mom had to pin me down to get me to take it. It was awful. But yeah, anyway, so Calvin doesn't like thermometers, doesn't like cough syrup. So good work, Mom. Because, like I said, she does take care of him when he's sick. But he doesn't want to mess around with that. It's a face worse than school to have to do that stuff. Also, Hobbes may play a role in this because he seems to have an instinct to go after the sick and weak. So even when Calvin actually is sick, he doesn't want Hobbes to know about it, if at all possible.
That's true. He's exhibiting classic prey animal behavior where they don't want to display any weakness or infirmity.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I know there's maybe more than once when this happens, but at least once he's not feeling well, then Hobbes comes up, oh, not feeling so hot. And Calvin's like, I'm fine. I'm the picture of health, you murderous savage, or something like that. And then I bet other people's best friends don't wait for them to get sick and weak.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of.
So yeah, and it does make me wonder too, like how much of the motive that might be also. So you made a good case with the fate worse than school, just having to sit still on the couch. That's no fun. But trying to avoid even more maulings from your pet tiger, who is supposedly your best friend, but still likes to pounce on you and what have you.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that goes into the motivation too.
Right. Yeah, I get enough of that already. All right, now before we get into the larger instances of Calvin being sick, we need to bring up an important and oft overlooked character, which is his doctor. Now, I say oft overlooked because in the 10th anniversary book, Bill Watterson has several pages dedicated to the cast, and it includes recurring characters like Miss Wormwood and Mo and Rosalind, who show up some, but I don't know that they show up that much more than the Doctor. Interestingly, the Doctor didn't make the cut, even though I think he shows up almost as much as, say, Mo.
Really? That's
Yeah, I
interesting.
haven't
I guess
counted.
if I had to guess, I would have guessed Mo shows up more than the doctor, but I don't know. I
Probably.
didn't check.
I haven't counted, and I think the Doctor does show up less, but, he shows up, he's a recurring character.
Yeah, I think you can tell me if I'm remembering this right. I thought Watterson even said that he originally thought the doctor might be a bigger character than he was, but then it didn't turn out that way.
I'm not familiar with the specific quote about that. I know he said that about Max, but he might have said that about the Doctor too.
Okay, it's possible I'm misremembering. I'm not sure. It could be, but I don't know. In any case, to me, it almost makes more sense that he wasn't that big of a character. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I guess, I mean, yeah, you could have the Doctor be a recurring character, but if you do that, then unless Calvin is sick even more than maybe he is, which, as you mentioned, is several times in the strip, then it wouldn't make a lot of sense for the Doctor to be around. But I don't know. To me, it might almost seem weird if he were a bigger character. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, no, I agree, actually. I think it's kind of surprising, actually, how much of an appearance the Doctor does make, that he has cause to be overlooked. Because, yeah, I mean, the Doctor is, like, in most people's lives, hopefully, a Doctor is mostly in the background. And even in Calvin's life, that's largely the case. It's just the fact that he's in there at least 3 story arcs, maybe more. One of them's fairly short, but he shows up more than you might think, and I just find that interesting.
Yeah,
Right. So
that's true.
Yeah. So, anyway, just quick description of the Doctor. He wears glasses. He has, I assume, white hair. It could be blonde, but in my head, it's white hair. We never see him in color. And he has a mustache. We aren't given his name. He's not Dr. So and so, for example. He's just a doctor. So not only can he not call mom by name, but she also can't call him by name.
Yeah,
in any
no,
case,
yeah. I always assumed. So you said he always seemed like he had white hair to you. I can see that. In my mind, he was always like maybe blonde or light brown because I read him as a bit younger than that. But you're right. We don't know. We never see him in color, so he could be an older gentleman too.
Yeah, so out of curiosity, listeners, what do you think the Doctor looked like? I don't think it's settled at all. But anyway, so the first story involving the Doctor seems to be not Calvin being sick, but just going in for a checkup. And it's just a couple of strips long, so we mentioned this one in episode 15 about Rosalind when we were talking about how she joked about bringing a cattle prod. So this one has the one where Calvin is saying, "What's that? Will it hurt? It's a stethoscope. It won't hurt at all. What's that? Will it hurt? It's a tongue depressor. It won't hurt at all. What's that? Will it hurt? It's a cattle prod. It hurts a little less than a branding iron." Calvin faints.
I think he says, "Wait, little kids have no sense of humor."
Yep.
So this was actually my first thought for what might have been the first instance of Calvin being sick until I thought of the other one where he's home.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was
Yeah,
my
this one's-
first instinct. Then I thought, no, I think there's that other one earlier.
Yeah, this one's pretty early on too. And then, so there's a follow up to this one. So I guess it's kind of a 2-strip story if you want to think of it that way. So we see mom sitting out in the waiting room, and Calvin is kind of narrating what's happening. "Hey, doc, why are you swabbing my arm? What, are you going to put a leech on it?" And just kind of getting more and more panicked. And then, "What is that? Is that a shot? Ah, it went right through my arm. Oh, mom." Mom is reading this magazine and just kind of hunched over and has this sheepish look on her face.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing I will say about that is I always thought that was a really funny visual. Like she's like trying to get as small and hidden and inconspicuous as she can, like hiding under a magazine. And this is also where I think this is something I mentioned before. The magazine she's reading is Woman Magazine, so which
Yes.
I just think is a funny detail.
Yeah, I agree. I also find it interesting that mom is not right there in the exam room with Calvin. I think that's kind of weird, even for the 80s.
Yeah, no, that strikes me as weird too, especially with only a 6 year old. Like, the parents would be in there with him. I mean, it does give us the funny visual, like we're talking about of her in the waiting room. But yeah, that
Yeah.
strikes me as very odd. Like, I feel like that wouldn't be what a parent would do.
Yeah, I guess I do know when I was 3, I had pneumonia, bad enough that I had to be in the hospital for a few days. And at one point, I don't remember the specifics exactly, but they had to do some procedure. Maybe it was putting an IV in or something. But anyway, they made my mom leave the room. And my mom just, listened to what they said. And so then she heard me screaming my head off in there because they were doing whatever. And I was 3 and my mom wasn't there. And
Yeah,
so,
that was been
But
horrifying.
but, that was like, she was like, never again. If they asked me to leave the room again, I'm saying no. Like with that, the first time she was just like, well, I'm being obedient and whatever. But afterwards, she was like, okay, we're not doing that again. I assume she told them and said, you do not kick me out of the room with my 3-year-old in there. I'm his advocate. That's not okay. But anyway, it's weird that Calvin's mom is just out in the waiting room.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that same thing happened then with Calvin. I mean, obviously he was just getting a checkup. It wasn't super
right.
good. But maybe after that, we do see mom in the waiting room, or I'm sorry, in the exam room with him after that. So maybe she made the same decision.
Yeah, that could be. Speaking of mom, the next arc actually is an arc where mom gets sick. And it starts with Calvin making her a get well card. He tells Hobbes, mom is sick, so I'm making her a get well card. And it says, get well soon because, like, my clothes need to be put away, something, and I'm hungry. I can't remember what the
I
other
think
thing
my
was,
bed
but
needs to be made or
But
something.
yeah.
yeah. Do you want to sign it, Hobbes? Yeah, I'm hungry too.
Yeah, so that one's pretty cute. That's kind of in the same vein as the Mother's Day card that he makes her
Hmm.
another time, where it's like, I was going to get you flower, or
I was
I
going
was
to
going
buy
to
you
buy
a
a card
card.
with flowers of pink and red, but then I thought I'd rather spend the money on me instead. So, it goes on from there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, same kind of theme in this case.
Yeah. And so, but Calvin does try to help out because he brings her breakfast in bed. And would you like to describe that breakfast for us?
Yes, I would. So first, I agree. He does actually show, love and consideration aside from the card. So he really does try to make her breakfast in bed. And it starts off well, right? It's like, oh, mom, since you're sick, I made you breakfast in bed. I made eggs, toast, and orange juice all by myself. It's okay, wow. But then, well, the eggs kind of burned and stuck to the pan, but you can probably get them out with this chisel. And what does mom ask?
What? Where are the toast and orange juice?
Yeah, dad said not to tell you about those until you're better.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what to imagine with that. I'm thinking maybe the orange juice went into the toaster or something, but
Yeah, that's what I always kind of thought. I mean, that would be a way to sort of combine the two to in a way that would ruin both of them.
Yeah.
Um,
And the
and
toaster.
something you wouldn't want to tell. It's like, well, it shorted out the toaster and caused a small electrical fire in the kitchen. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you want
Yeah.
to wait till you're better to hear that one, I guess. But
Right.
yeah, so to Calvin's credit, he did try to do something nice, bringing breakfast in bed to his mother. It just didn't go very well.
yes. And after that point, Dad handles the cooking, although I'm not sure he's much better because he tells Calvin, oh, well, while your mom's sick, I'll be doing the cooking. You know how to cook. Well, sure, as you can see, I survived 2 years of my own cooking after college when I had my own apartment. And what does Calvin say?
I was as mom says you ate nothing but canned soup and frozen waffles 3 meals a day.
Well, your mom wasn't there, so she wouldn't know. Get out the syrup, will you?
Yeah, which is great because that last line, like, I don't know, it's a little bit subtle, not super subtle, but it's like, oh, okay, so get out the syrup. If you're not paying attention, you can just kind of read past that. But it's like, oh, well, maybe she did know what was happening there.
Yeah, well, and he seems to be getting out a can of soup while he's saying that too. So
Yeah, so I always thought that was pretty funny. And I also like too, this is one of the rare instances where we get an idea of dad and mom's pre-married life. So
Yeah.
yeah, so he says, "Oh, your mom wasn't there," which makes me think, well, okay, they weren't living together or married yet or what have you. But I always interpreted it as like they're dating at that point, but they have
Hmm.
separate places they live.
right, and so she wasn't there when he was doing the cooking, so she wouldn't know, but she did know because she was dating him.
Yeah, so that's pretty fun too. I like to kind of think about, what were these characters like or what were they doing before we meet them in the strip.
Yeah, I'll just say in college I ate a lot of canned soup too, so I guess it's a rite of passage.
Yeah, and frozen waffles are not bad, really.
No, they're not. Yeah. 3 meals a day would be a bit much, but yeah, no, they're not bad.
That would be a bit much, I agree.
So after that, Calvin continues to try to help Mom. He offers to read her a story. He says, "When I'm sick, you read me a story. Do you want me to read you one?" And she says, "No, thanks. I just want to rest," but she's nice about it. And we brought this up before in the episode about Mom. Calvin says, "It's hard to be a mom for a mom." And she gives him a big hug and says, "Oh, you're doing fine, honey. Oh, are you contagious? Oh, let me go."
Yeah, but it is a sweet moment. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
as
yeah,
much as
he's trying.
yeah, he doesn't do a good job, and usually he's a right terror, but he is very caring at various times. So
Yeah.
And then, so Calvin is talking to Hobbes about this, and Hobbes floats the idea that, do you think she's having a baby? A baby? Why would she want another kid? She's already got me.
yeah, you'd think she'd have learned her lesson.
Which, fair point.
Yeah, no, I think Hobbes is probably right there.
Yeah.
This also it kind of puts me in mind of actually a peanut strip. So it this one, jump ahead, turns out, Calvin's mom isn't having a baby. But in Peanuts, there's a strip where it's sort of a similar setup. So Charlie Brown is talking about how his mother is going to the hospital for a few days. And then you see Lucy kind of wondering, she's like, going to the hospital for a few days, huh? I wonder. And then it turns out that's when Sally's born. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it is, and it's kind of funny because it's like you think, well, I guess the little kid's sort of oblivious to what's going on. As all of a sudden his mother goes to the hospital and comes back with a baby with no indication that he was aware of a pregnancy in the first place. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's not totally crazy to think Calvin might have thought something like that. Although he is then informed why he should have known his mother wasn't pregnant, and why is that?
Well, Dad explains that if she were pregnant, she would look like a hippopotamus with a gland problem.
Exactly. And so mom creams him with her pillow.
And Dad thinks she must be feeling better.
Yeah. So yeah, listeners out there, if you're around a woman who's pregnant, probably don't compare her to a hippopotamus with a gland problem.
I think that's pretty good advice. Maybe there's an instance where that would go over well, but I can't imagine one.
Probably not. I mean, even if this were a conversation among hippos, you'd still be saying she had a gland problem. So
Right. Yeah. So, yeah.
yeah,
By
so
the way,
either don't
on
do that or be prepared to duck.
Yes. On the Charlie Brown strip, I just wanted to mention quickly, even though this is a Calvin and Hobbes podcast, if I'm remembering right, when Charlie Brown gets the call that Sally has been born, he runs out yelling, "I'm a father! I mean, brother!"
Yeah, he does. So he does correct himself too, like, "Wow, I'm a father. I mean, my dad's a father. I have a sister. I'm a brother."
yeah. I
Yeah,
thought that was cute and fun.
it is. Yeah, you're exactly right. And then he also passes out chocolate cigars later
Oh,
because,
yeah.
yeah, because I guess I don't think this is really a thing now. Maybe it is, but like it was, when you become a father, you pass out cigars to your friend or something, which
Right.
like
Yeah.
gross,
That's a
especially in
good
a
solution.
hospital. But anyway, yeah, chocolate cigars would be fun though.
Tell you what, I would much rather have a chocolate cigar. Cigars smell nasty, in my opinion, and smoking is gross.
They do, and
I'm
they
just
should
gonna
probably be away from maternity wards, if nothing else.
also that, yeah, while we're at it.
But yeah, so yeah, I always thought, to me, that was an interesting connection between Calvin wondering if maybe his mom could be pregnant, and then thinking back to Peanuts, which we do know was an inspiration for Calvin and
Yeah,
Hobbes. Yeah,
absolutely, definitely.
not that necessarily this particular strip was inspired by that one, but it's an interesting connection.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you can definitely see some parallels, even if it wasn't necessarily a direct this inspired that.
Right.
Yeah. Now, the next arc involving sickness takes place in the summer. And so from here on out, it's going to be Calvin being sick. And so here, mom notes that Calvin hasn't gotten up and he says he doesn't feel good. So mom goes to call the doctor, and Calvin is mad that he's sick when it's summer, which will come up again. And so mom takes Calvin to the doctor, and he has a very sarcastic visit with the doctor. You know, no, I just like to sit around in torture chambers in my underwear for kicks. And, by the way, here we get Calvin directly telling us that his dad is a lawyer. My dad's a lawyer, I'll have you know. Don't come near me. And
True.
it's this one or another one where Calvin says, "Sue him, mom. Drive his malpractice up." But anyway, so here we get that direct statement that dad is a lawyer. We also get a Spaceman Spiff strip where Calvin is fending off, or rather, Spaceman Spiff is fending off an alien who he calls Maggot from Mars. in reality, Calvin is like hiding under the exam table or something, and the doctor's on his hands and knees. And he's like, "Kid, don't make me recant the Hippocratic Oath."
And now, is this the one where later he says he had to fend him off with his own tongue depressor?
Yes, I believe so. Because mom is saying, "You were certainly a terror in the doctor's office," and Calvin is like, "Yeah, I had to fend him off with his own tongue depressor. That's why I didn't get caught. That's why I didn't get a shot. He sees me as a pin cushion in underpants."
Like, you didn't even need a shot.
Yeah. But I just want to point out for a second, I think it's weird. Last arc we talked about, it was weird that mom's not in the exam room with him. Now she seems to be, but is it weird that Calvin has to strip down to his underwear? I don't think my doctor did that unless there was a medical reason to. So
yeah, I agree. To me, that seems weird also. Yeah, it was the same. Like, I don't remember, having to take clothes off unless for some reason. Like, typically it'd be like, okay, I need to check your breathing, take your shirt off, which makes sense. But
right.
Yeah, that does seem weird. I wonder if any of this could be generational at all. Like, maybe when Bill Watterson was a kid, that was more standard practice or something. I don't know. That's just something I'm wondering about.
Well, that's a distinct possibility. So I was just rereading the interview that Jenny Robb did with Watterson, and in that he talks about how he didn't have kids during the run of the strip. So what she asks him was, "You didn't have kids then, and you're a parent now. How does that inform what you might have done?" And he said that he missed some memos about parenting between when he was a kid and even the 80s and 90s, where there were things you could do as a parent in the 60s, like leave your kid in the car while you went into the store to get stuff,
right,
that you maybe could still get away with in the 80s, but it was definitely becoming more frowned upon
and
at
certainly
that point.
now.
And yeah, definitely now you can get in big trouble for doing that. And not only can you get in big trouble, it's dangerous. But
right, it's not arbitrary. Like, it's a bad idea, and that's why you can get in trouble.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, so maybe when Watterson was a kid, you went in the exam room maybe by yourself and maybe often in your underwear. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so that's maybe my best guess for that. But yeah, I do agree that does seem weird, and it's not how I remember Dr. Viz being as a kid.
yeah, and I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and
Right.
so, but anyway, so also this is the one. So mom is chastising Calvin for being a terror in the doctor's office, and Calvin saying all that stuff, and then mom says, and we've referenced this before, she hopes someday Calvin has a kid who puts him through what he puts her through, and he says, "Yeah, that's what Grandma used to say about you."
Right, which I absolutely love, not only because I can totally see a kid saying that, but also because, for lack of a better word, it gives the sense that Calvin's not sort of anomalously bad or prone to misbehavior. So, I mean, with some justification, it's easy to read the strip as like these poor beleaguered parents who have this ridiculous handful of a child who's always getting in trouble for various ways. But this gives us a sense that, they were children too, or at least the mom might have misbehaved some when she was a kid. And maybe this is more like a normal sort of rite of passage for parents to go through and then kind of project onto their own progeny and their kids. So yeah, I would kind of like that from that angle.
And I mean, I think we've said before, we both agree that mom probably wasn't quite as much to deal with as Calvin is. But
Right.
yeah, it sounds like she was rambunctious, had some energy, made her mom pull her hair out sometimes. And on that note, I'll just quickly say, since I talk about my kids sometimes, I have a 6-year-old who is kind of like Calvin in some ways. And, I love her to pieces. She's awesome. Boy, does she have a lot of energy, and she likes to get into mischief. And I will say, a few weeks ago, I saw a dad in a waiting room. We were at an office, and a dad was fussing at his kid and really kind of upset at whatever it was that his kid has done. He was like carrying him out and saying, "We have to go now, and you don't get to do whatever." And you know what? It was kind of validating. Like, it's not just me.
Yeah, that's probably important for parents. I mean, anyone really, to know that there's other people like you and your problems aren't unique to yourself. But in parents in particular, probably it's like, okay, other people's kids are aggravating too. It's not some crazy thing with our family.
And it's nice to know, like, okay, when your kid is misbehaving, you get upset too, and you're not, you kind of fuss and dole out whatever consequences. So when I fuss at my daughter, sometimes I feel bad, like, oh, I need to be more patient with her. And it's just kind of validating to be like, okay, maybe it's true that in some instances I need to be more patient, but also sometimes kids are just aggravating, and sometimes you just, oh. And
yeah,
so,
well, it's even like I guess Calvin's dad said. I think we might have mentioned this in the previous episode. We were talking about the zoo trip. It's like, being a parent is wanting to hug and strangle your kid at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So just, parents everywhere, you're not alone.
We see you.
We see you, yes. Okay, but let's move on, because now we get to at least my favorite Sick story. I don't know if you have a favorite or what yours might be if you do, but I love this one. So,
yeah, I don't know if I thought about which was my favorite or not, but I agree this is a very good one.
Yeah. So Calvin calls for mom in the middle of the night, and dad comes into his room, and he's like, "What do you need, Calvin? I don't feel good. I want mom." And dad doesn't hesitate to just go right back to his room.
Yeah, then it's like, I think she protests like
me? What's wrong with you?
I don't know. It's like,
let me back under the covers. Yeah. And so mom gets up and she's like, "Why are kids always sick right in the middle of the night? He probably just had too much dessert. If he's going to get me up at 2 a.m., he better really be sick." And then from off screen, we read, "BARRRFF." And it's written in such a funny font. And it's probably weird that I find a font funny, but it's just...
I get it. Like, that's part of the visual presentation of what's going on, right? So it's not just like the sound effect of the word; it's the way the letters look to convey what's happening too. So I think it makes sense to find the font funny.
Yeah, like they're outlined and they're just kind of, I don't know, off kilter. They're not in a nice straight line, and it conveys exactly what you should be hearing, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
and in that panel.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, in that panel where we're reading "BARRRFF," mom just has this horrified expression on her face that I love.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. I really love her face there, where she gets, this horrible like surprise / scared / sad expression, and then I didn't mean it. Like, yeah, that really kind of sells it too.
Yeah, and then of course dad says, "Honey, pipe down. I'm trying to sleep."
Yeah, I love how, like we were saying a second ago, how willing he is to just accept this, take advantage of it. It's like, well, the kid wants his mom. Nothing I can do but go back to sleep. That's not my fault. Like,
Yeah. And I'm kind of shocked that he didn't get creamed with another pillow here.
that's
But
true. She was
I guess
probably
maybe he did.
distracted about feeling guilty over, saying he better really be sick, and then he was. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
it
But
is hard for a mom to be a mom.
it's yes. So then mom is in Calvin's room taking his temperature. And, at first he's just kind of sitting there. And she said, it's been 20 minutes since you've been sick. So I think we're past the worst of it. And then Calvin goes, hey, go home up again with the thermometer in his mouth. And what's that, honey? Hey, go home up again. Well, why did you say so? Give me the thermometer, run.
Which is great too, because like the first time you read that, it might not register either. And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I get what he's saying. It's just he has the thermometer in his mouth.
Yeah. And it kind of reminds me of the one that you like when the baseball hits him in the nose and he's like, all my character dripping out my nose. Just, he writes it in this way that's like, okay, you got to think about it for a sec. Oh, I get what he's saying.
Exactly. Yeah, that's probably one of my all-time favorite lines from the strip. Both because of that, and also because of the running gag of him having to build character, not liking it, and then just his sarcasm over it. Like,
Yes.
it's almost like, okay, sure, this could build my character, but it's all leaking away from my nosebleed. So
Yeah.
I love that. So yeah, this is a similar kind of thing here.
Yeah, exactly. So mom tucks Calvin in and, says, poor little guy, and she goes off. And then Hobbes is like, move over there. There's nothing worse than having a sick roommate. And
Yeah,
Hobbes
we
is just
see
not
Calvin
thrilled.
like is woken out of his uneasy sleep too. He was settling into.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, is this also the story arc, or is it a different one where Calvin starts to get worried and he's like, well, what if I'm really sick and there's something seriously wrong with me? What if they have to operate and this is my last night alive? And remember what Hobbes' reaction is?
Something like, then I can look forward to having the bed to myself tomorrow night or something like that.
Yeah, so yeah, and Calvin says there are few things less comforting than a tiger who's been up too late.
Yep. So, yeah, and yes, I think that is the same arc. I'm pretty sure. And then, so the next morning, Calvin is still not feeling well. Mom comes in and, he's not gotten up and, well, okay, I'll call the doctor. Okay. Well, it's Saturday. You won't miss school. I know. And so she books it to the phone. Like,
Yeah,
okay, he's definitely sick.
yeah, so he definitely doesn't pretend to be sick, and now we know it's definitely for real here because it's Saturday. Not
Yeah.
like Peggy and McKay, to bring that back again.
Right. And I find it interesting that mom is able to call the doctor on Saturday. I don't think my pediatrician was open on Saturdays. Was yours?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So the honest answer is I don't remember. So,
Okay.
yeah, so I was thinking about that. I'm like, well, I couldn't really come up with anything. So I'd guess no, but I don't honestly know. So I guess it wouldn't surprise me if pediatricians were more likely than maybe adult doctors to be
Yeah.
open on the weekend just because of needing to take care of kids. But I don't actually have any knowledge one way or the other on that.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% certain mine wasn't. I just feel like that's the case, but yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
I just can't remember, honestly.
Yeah. Well, all right, moving on. Now, this time, Calvin is not a terror in the doctor's office. He just doesn't have the energy. He's kind of a wet noodle or something in the doctor's office. And the doctor says, he's just got the bug that's going around, but he should be done, should be over it in a few days. Let me know if he's not getting better. No, and then what does the doctor tell mom?
It's like nothing like a virus to take the edge off a kid.
Yeah, and mom says, well, I'd still rather let his teacher deal with him.
True.
Which, I mean, it is Saturday, so but he does end up getting to miss school. So I guess whatever illness this was lasted through the whole weekend, and then he's sitting in bed wishing that he could do this every day. I get to drink tea in bed and watch TV, and isn't this the life? This is great. I wish I could do this every day, like some people I know. Looking over at Hobbes.
Yeah, and Hobbes goes, well, your mother doesn't bring me tea in bed. Yeah, I will
Yeah.
say too, at least Hobbes didn't like frolic away gloating this time, like in our previous trip we mentioned before. Like, I
Yeah,
think that one's about probably about summer, right? Where it's like,
I think
oh,
so.
yeah, don't you love this? No school, no responsibilities. Don't you wish it could be like this every day, forever? And then you brought this up before. Hobbes like puts his head right down next to him, gives him like the cheekiest smile you can think of, then just dances away with glee. Oh yeah, just gloat about it. Why don't you?
Yes, that one. I mean, I love that strip a lot. I think it might be my wife's favorite strip, or if it's not her favorite, it's one of the top ones for her. It's so funny.
Oh
Just
yeah.
the expression Hobbes has. And yeah, I think you said that if you were to look up frolicking in a dictionary, that would be a great picture to go with it.
Exactly. That would be the illustration of frolicking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of like that too, but not as
Yeah.
Hobbes is not as gloaty about it.
He's actually a little bitter. You got tea in bed. I don't get tea in
Yeah,
bed.
I don't get tea in bed. It is kind of
Uh,
funny to imagine, like now that I think about it, like if when Calvin was gone, Hobbes was just tucked into the bed there, and his mom did bring him tea or something. But it's like, oh yeah,
yeah.
I do that every day after you went from school. I dote on Hobbes when you aren't here.
Yes. That's because she wanted another tiger, not you, right?
That's true.
Um, Now, the next day, presumably, I assume this is the next day, Calvin is still home. Seems to be feeling well enough that he can call for room service because he wants some more toast. So mom says, tomorrow you're going to school. And that's the end of that arc. I will say, I don't know what the rules were then. The rule now is you're not supposed to take your kid back to school until they've been 24 hours fever free without medicine. So even if they're feeling better, they're still supposed to stay home. I
Okay.
imagine a lot of parents don't actually adhere to that rule, but that's what you're supposed to do.
That would make
So,
sense.
yeah, you're trying to avoid getting the other kids sick.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that was a rule in the 80s and 90s. And I don't know if this, maybe Calvin still wasn't feeling well in the morning, but now he's perked up and able to call for room service.
Yeah, he seems quite a bit improved, so it wouldn't surprise me if I mean they never talk about this, but if it was the case that he didn't have fever at that point anymore.
Right.
So it might have been following the rule either way.
Yeah.
But yeah, he certainly seems like he's not really sick anymore. So I do want to say rookie mistake there, Calvin. You don't have to lie, but don't like advertise that you're feeling much better. That's a bad move.
Yeah. He could have gotten at least one more day out of it.
Probably.
Although, you get to the point where you're feeling better and you don't want to sit in bed anymore. You want to run around.
That's true.
And, it gets to a point where it's real hard to keep the act going if you're not actually still feeling sick.
Yeah, well, and it's like we were talking about before. Maybe that's a fate worse than school. So
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's one more story arc with Calvin getting sick. So in this one, it's again summer, and he tells mom he doesn't feel good. And this is the one where mom says she'll take his temperature, and he doesn't believe her that it takes 2 hours for this to register. But so he's itchy. He finds spots on his stomach, and he goes, "Oh, cool!" And of course, what are these spots?
they are chicken pox.
Yes, as diagnosed by the doctor. And Calvin's like, chicken pox? What is this guy, a veterinarian? I bet the real doctor is tied and gagged in the other exam room. Mom, this
Which
guy's a
I love.
quack.
I
What?
know, right? I love that idea too, just because this is so much the kind of thing that would happen on like kids' cartoons, where it's like the good guys visit someone that they think they know, but really they're tied up in the other room with like a shapeshifter or someone in a disguise is there. So I love that that's where Calvin's mind goes here.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense. I'm sure he's watched cartoons where that sort of thing has happened. Of course, during all this, the doctor completely ignores Calvin. He's just talking to mom. He explains to mom that Calvin has chickenpox. He's contagious. He needs to stay away from other kids, and the disease will run its course in about a week. And so mom goes, Calvin has to be inside for a week? The doctor goes, "That's a nasty twitch you've developed."
Understandable.
Yeah. And upon hearing this, Calvin changes his tune from yelling at the doctor about being a quack to, "Hey, doc, for $10, I'll make sure all those other kids in the waiting room are back in your office again real soon." So,
Yeah, so he's actually feeling better than you might expect for being sick.
yeah.
Although I guess I don't. So I remember having chicken pox a little bit when I was not too much older than Calvin. I don't remember how it made me feel like, say, in terms of fatigue or overall energy versus just how awful it is
Yeah.
to have itching and stuff. So maybe that's typical. I don't remember. Do you remember when you had chicken pox as a kid or?
No, I had chicken pox very young. I got it when I was like 1 or 2.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, it actually turned out to be a bad thing because if you get it that young, you apparently get a fairly mild case often and maybe won't develop immunity. So, since then, I've had experience with its sister disease, the shingles, which was awful. But
Oh no, I'm
uh,
sorry. Yeah, I have
yeah,
heard. I haven't experienced that myself, but I know other people who have, and that's apparently excruciating. So,
yeah, I was like 7 when it happened, and I don't remember it real well, but I remember it was miserable. Uh,
God,
but yeah, chicken pox, I don't remember, or rather, I don't know if it's
sure.
particularly miserable. I remember my friend having it and seeming like maybe he was able to get up and do stuff. So maybe it depends partly where you are in the course of the virus.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. But anyway, so on the note of getting kids in the doctor's office, Calvin invites Susie over to play, and it almost works. She's so excited about it, but mom catches him. "Oh, Calvin, you're not supposed to have everyone over. You have chicken pox." "Oh, mom, I was gonna
You're
trick
ruining the
Susie
whole thing. Yeah,
into." For
yeah,
some reason, mom's not okay with this.
yeah. Which interestingly, I mean, this. I don't think this was a thing when I had chicken pox as a kid, but not too long after that, it started to become not uncommon for parents to intentionally have their
Mhm.
kids get exposed to it because that means it's like a milder case or easier to deal with than if you get it when you're older.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I know that at least it became a thing where sometimes you might want to have other kids over to get them chicken pox on purpose. Now presumably you would arrange this with their parents and not just let your child trick another child. But
Right. But yeah,
yeah,
I think this strip was running at a time when that was kind of the done thing. So, but yes, probably you'd want to check with Mrs. Durkins first.
yeah, and maybe let Susie in on it too. Although, yeah, I
Yeah, I
don't
don't
know.
know if you let the kid on it or not, actually. So I'm
Interesting. I
not
guess
sure
that
what the
can be a
conventional wisdom is.
yeah, that's a moral quandary we can think about another time maybe. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah. Anyway, in this case, so Calvin attempts to trick Susie to come over and get chicken pox, presumably not out of altruism, but because he thinks it'd be funny to give her chicken pox. Mom ruins it, and Susie says, "Boy, I don't think you've ever invited me over before," and that's when Mom ruins everything. But that being said, can you think of any other times when Calvin does invite Susie to play with him?
okay, so I can think of some instances where he initiates contact. He like there's the one where he wants to eat some worms. Like, do you dare me to eat this worm? And that's kind of inviting her to play.
Okay.
Uh, let's see. Oh, I had something else. Oh, well, there's this one's not inviting her to play, but when he's doing his report on the brain, or no, on bats, he calls her up and asks if she's going to the library, and asks if she'll research bats for him while she's there, and kind of outline it so he won't have to read everything. And she doesn't go for that.
Wow.
Um,
How inconsiderate of her.
girls are girls are so lame. Um, Oh, but let's see. Inviting her to play. I'm not coming up with anything. What do you have?
Well, yeah, so it's not exactly inviting her to play, and I don't think he ever invites her over to the house like in this, and like Susie
Right.
said. But it seems like there's some times where, like you said, he does kind of initiate contact with her and and want to play with her. So there's one that's sort of similar. He doesn't invite her to come play, but he sort of invites himself to her house. And
Mm,
so he's watching cartoons, and Dad kicks him out. Oh, you should be running around outside. Don't do that. And he walks to Susie's house. It's like, hey, are you watching cartoons? Can we come in? It's like, oh yeah, it's a commercial. Come on in. So
that's true. That's true. Yep.
yeah, so he has gone to play. I guess we'll call it at her house, and then it seems like he's willing to play with her when they're outside. So like
Right.
they'll I mean, it can be 50-50, right? Either he'll want to get rid of a slimy girl and want nothing to do with her, or he'll be fine with playing with her.
Yeah.
But
I mean, usually the playing together doesn't go very well, but
yeah,
yeah.
but he's at least willing to, right?
Right.
So yeah, I was kind of curious about that because when I think about it, it's like, well, yeah, Susie's right, but I mean, it's not that he never wants to play with her, so it's a little different, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Uh, now there's also so he tries to get Susie to get the chicken pox. Hobbes wants to be very sure that tigers can't catch chicken pox. You're absolutely sure tigers can't catch chicken pox, and they're in bed, right? And then he shows Calvin his claws, and so then Calvin's shaking his mom awake. You're absolutely sure that tigers can't catch chicken pox.
Yeah, which presumably they can't. Although, at the risk of making everybody cry, this does put me in mind of the children's story, The Velveteen Rabbit.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, listeners, if you or you probably know what I'm thinking here, but so it's not chicken pox, but the boy gets, I want to say, is it scarlet fever?
I think that's right.
Yeah, some pretty serious disease, and then because the beloved toy rabbit is like around him, it gets like contaminated with the virus, and so it has to be. Well, let's just say I can hardly say it. But anyway, so it's
Well,
kind of
hey,
sad at the end there. So
it's sad, although if you read it the right way, the rabbit ends up being okay. So,
that's true. So it has, you can read it as a happy ending in a certain sense, amidst the very sad parts also.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, listeners, if you haven't read it, um, don't bother
Or
unless
well,
you want to be sad.
yeah, great book, but yeah, read it at your emotional peril, let's say.
Yes.
But yeah, so that just kind of occurred to me now, but there is a precedent for, a stuffed animal. I mean, we wouldn't say getting the disease, but getting the germs of the disease on it and then that being a big problem.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so not a totally outlandish thing for Hobbes and or Calvin to worry about.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Now, after the chicken pox clear up, Calvin reminds his mom that this week doesn't count. And she says, "Doesn't count?" And he says, "Well, yeah, it's summer vacation. So I get to start school a week late. So I get my full allotment of vacation."
I love that he uses the word allotment too. It's not even just like, so I still get my just like, no, I am due my full allotment of designated vacation days.
Yeah. And so mom doesn't buy that. And so the last panel has Calvin and Hobbes looking through a book. All right, what's the next amendment say? I'm sure it's in here somewhere. I took that to mean constitutional amendments. I'm not sure if it was the Constitution or amendments to like the HOA contract or, but some
I
set
would
of
assume.
amendments. Yeah, that would make the most sense.
Yeah, well, and also Calvin has tried to cite the Constitution for various things in the past or past and or future other times in the strip. So there's one point where so I think he's in the classroom at this point and he makes this argument. It's like, Miss Wormwood, if ignorance is bliss, then this attempt to make me learn seems to be infringing on my right to happiness as outlined in the Constitution. And so I demand that I be excused from this on legal ground or something like that. So
Yeah,
yeah, and then this doesn't work, of course. And then I think that ends with him yelling out the door, "Communists!"
right. There's
Yeah,
also
so,
one where it's not the Constitution that he's citing, but he hands a note to Miss Wormwood that's like, "Dear Miss Wormwood, please excuse Calvin from school today as his genius is desperately required for a matter of national security. Sincerely, the President of the United States. P.S. really.
Yes, P.S. Really, yeah, that's the best part.
This Wormwood doesn't buy it, and so Calvin's thought is, I gotta learn how to write cursive.
Yeah, which also I think is very funny because admittedly that would make it slightly more believable, but
Well, yeah, but
now I think maybe nowadays they're not really teaching cursive anymore, or at least not
yeah, I kind of get
everywhere.
that sense. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to worry about it as much anymore because everyone writes by typing now. Although there's still some cases where you might want to be able to read cursive, so it seems like it would still make some sense.
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird because it's like, I mean, this is a skill that we humans have had for, you know, generations upon generations, and now we're just gonna sort of lose it. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
know.
it does seem like if nothing else, it would hinder the ability of future generations to read old documents that you may want to be able to read when you're trying to understand history and stuff. So,
Right. And I
yeah.
mean, surely we still want to write on actual paper sometimes, not just type everything. I know I do. So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can write in print, but yeah.
yeah, but
Um,
oh well. But anyway, yeah. So that is kind of a funny thing. I was like, oh man, if only I had written this in cursive, then she'd believe that the president of the United States needed me for a matter of national security.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But
if
Calvin,
only she understood that Calvin can make a transmogrifier out of a cardboard box
a transmogrifier, a duplicator, and a time machine.
and a cerebral enhancitron. So,
Yeah, I mean, actually, if the president knew about that, then he probably would think that they would need Calvin's genius.
it's true. Yeah. Speaking of genius and doctory things, there are a few other, not story arcs, just some standalone strips that talk about doctors. And in one of them, it's a robot doctor who is performing surgery. And so we actually see him sawing Calvin's head open. How's the anesthetic? Feel anything? No. uh, so, Calvin's head is open like a hinge.
Yeah,
And
it like opens up like
And so the robot doctor is just applying a little gray matter here, a dash there, tum de tum de dum, and then he stitches Calvin's head up. All right, how you feel? Smart. This knowledge transplant should provide all the information, all the knowledge you need. So go have umpteen years of fun. No more school.
like great, thanks, doc.
Yeah. Of course,
Yeah,
this was unfortunately all a fantasy.
yeah, it wasn't real. I also like too when you said it's a robot doctor, and Calvin says, "You're a robot." Well, sure, we wouldn't trust unsteady human hands to this delicate operation, would we? Oh no, I guess not. Like,
Obviously.
yeah.
And then
So yeah, I was gonna say so yeah, genius and doctory things, but yeah, I think Calvin on several occasions does try to use constitutional or legal precedents for things
mhm.
like it's not exactly the Constitution, but I remember there's one where he gets put to bed, then all of a sudden you see he has this kind of brain flash, so he gets back up and this mom says, "What are you doing out of bed again? You didn't read me my rights."
Yep. He's thinking I bet he would be a good lawyer, actually.
Yeah, I mean he does engage his dad in argument and debate from time to time too. So that plus his
Right.
dad being a lawyer, it wouldn't be outlandish to think that Calvin could grow up to be one too.
Yeah, I could see it. And then one well, this won't be quite the last one, but another great doctor strip is one of the ones that it starts out being drawn in like a soap opera comic style. And
Right.
so Calvin is dressed up as a doctor, but it's adult Calvin with like nicely coiffed hair and a lab coat, and he's like, for this patient I'm going to need more tongue depressors. And then that's the throwaway joke. And so then this woman comes in who is Susie, of course, but drawn as an adult, and he's like, "So what seems to be the problem? As if I care. My foot hurts, doctor. Your foot hurts? What kind of dumb problem is that?" Which that's a line that gets used in our house sometimes. If I stub my toe or my wife hurts her ankle or whatever, my foot hurts. Your foot hurts. What kind of dumb problem is that?
It's good that your wife is also a fan of the strip then, because otherwise it might
Yes.
not go well to say. You hurt your
Yeah.
foot. I don't care. What? That's dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she knows what I'm talking about. I know what she's talking about. So.
Yeah. Now, I assume you don't diagnose this in the same way that Calvin does, though, because after being persuaded that email is a dumb problem, he has to diagnose this. He says, it's psychosomatic. You need a lobotomy. I'll get a saw. One of my
Great
all-time
line.
favorite lines.
Yeah, do you know that line made its way into an episode of Parks and Recreation?
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so one of the characters is trying to impress the mother of this girl he likes, who's the main character, and he learns about her interest. You know, the mother is a hard-nosed government employee who doesn't appreciate nonsense and whatever, but he learns about her interests, and that apparently one of her interests is Calvin and Hobbes. And so he actually says to her, after arguing with her, you know, basically, you're crazy. In the words of the great Bill Watterson, you need a lobotomy, I'll get a saw. And then
Wow.
she goes, I love Calvin and Hobbes. So
Okay, man,
made
that's
its way into
funny.
pop culture.
All right, very cool. It's funny too because I like that show a lot. I watched a lot. I know the character you're talking about, the mother too, but I missed that reference somehow. I'll have to go back and watch that.
Yeah, you got to go find it.
Nice.
So yeah,
Very
great line. Also, I believe that's also the one where he's like, here's a mallet. Do you want anesthetic?
That's right. And then she gets a horrified expression. "Well, that's to test reflexes. You don't know anything." It's like, who's the doctor? You or me?
I'm going to be the doctor now. Hey, quit kicking. That's why your dumb foot hurts.
So he does diagnose her problem.
Yeah. Say it. Say I'm the doctor. All right, fine. You're the doctor, but I won't be any patient of yours. I'm leaving.
It's like, good riddance. You ruin everything.
And then Hobbs is like, I'd be Susie's patient.
Oh, Hobbs. Yeah. Now, one other instance of the two of them playing doctor together, or Calvin attempting this, which also involves cutting into a head with a saw, strangely enough. We see there's a snowman lying on the ground. Calvin is sawing its head. And he says, while I'm doing brain surgery, you can make a donor and do a heart transplant.
Yeah, Susie's not into that game.
Which I want to say, I feel like Susie was maybe too hasty in this. Like, I don't know, that's kind of cool, right? Like,
It is kind of a creative thing to do.
yeah, I mean, granted, they probably wouldn't really use a saw. I do agree with Susie on that. But I don't know, the heart transplant thing, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean it's a real medical procedure.
Yeah,
It's snow. It's not like it's gory or anything. So
yeah. I mean, maybe in her mind it's still gross, but yeah, I mean, as far as
fair enough.
yeah, like as far as them playing together and how things go, sometimes that actually seems on the tamer side.
Yeah, which speaking of, you know, that's an instance of them playing together at least for a little bit and possibly initiated by Calvin even.
Yeah, yeah, it does seem like it was his idea. So yeah, it's like I was saying, he does seem like he wants to play with her sometimes. It's just, but he never wants her to come over to his house, which is sort of an interesting dichotomy in a way.
Sanctum sanctorum, man.
That's true. Well, that's why when she does have to come over that one time, then there's the emergency meeting of Gross to try to get rid of her. Especially because my mom may have covert girl sympathies. Which she probably does, honestly.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, mom is kind of a girl, sort of. Huh?
And then just to close things out, this one's not about being sick per se, but Calvin and Hobbes are watching a bug zip around and talking about how it loops around in such wild patterns, and why don't they get sick and barf? Well, maybe they do. Well, but then why would they do that? Well, maybe bugs like to barf.
Oh, they would.
Oh, I love having a frank discussion of ideas with a good friend or something like that.
Yeah,
the exact line.
You know, someone you can discuss important issues with or something.
Yeah. And I think bugs barfing is a great place to wrap things up. So, listeners, tell us about a time when you barfed. No, I'm just kidding.
Or saw a bug barf like that.
Yeah. But, you know, whatever you'd like to tell us about, you can always get in touch with us at magiccandh@proton.me. You can email us there. That's magiccandh@proton.me.
And as always, this podcast is completely free and completely ad-free. So no strings attached. Just come listen and have fun with us as we celebrate this iconic comic strip.
Yes. Try not to get sick, and let's go exploring. You've been listening to The Magic of Calvin and Hobbes, a fan celebration. We'll be releasing 40 episodes all throughout the year, from November 18th, 2025 to November 18th, 2026, to celebrate the 40th anniversary. Our intro and outro music is Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, referenced in the Calvin and Hobbes strip published on October 8, 1986. This rendition was performed by the Skidmore College Orchestra and made available under a Creative Commons license on museopen.com. We hope you'll join us next episode for more fun.